working with DLI. And with me I have Angie Andreessen. She is our business analyst, as well as we have a few CRT folks on the phone, so we'll be able to answer your questions. Like all of our answer hours, this one is recorded, so if anybody misses it and wants to go back and listen, please feel free to. Also, we requested when you ask questions, just put your questions in the chat, and we'll be able to get to them. And as we're going through the presentation, we've done a number of these now, so we're always, we like the conversation, we like the dialogue. This is a great tool for us to get feedback and make the system better and more usable for everybody. With that, we'll get started. Go through the agenda real quick. The agenda is very similar to how we normally do our agendas, which is where we talk about the last release, which was last Thursday. Talk about some known issues. We go through a little Q&A, and then we'll talk about upcoming sessions. Throughout this, like I said, please feel free to ask us questions, and we'll be able to respond to you or get that information. All right, let's talk about the release. So we had a number of things that are now working. So sequencing on your sequencing issues on your legacy file for choice should now be working, and that was really affecting files that were started pre-campus, and so they're legacy migrated files. Erroneous creation of some entities via EDI transactions, and then missing DN information on some acknowledgements, and then failures due to missing witness name and phone number in present. So those have all been corrected. So now when you're doing your submissions, you should no longer see those. And did you have any commentary on those at all?
Not really. I think there may still be some sequencing questions, especially if you're running into issues with like date of birth or SSN. But if you are running into sequencing issues with your Shroy URs or anything following them, just let us know, and we can certainly look those up and work through it with you. I'll go ahead and I'll put our EDI email in the chat.
Perfect. All right. The next one, some of the things we know that we're having some challenges with now is all the AR data elements on URs that are being submitted. I think I've said this before, we're treating them as mandatory conditional. So if you're sending something in as an AR, that's an AR data element, we are validating it against the conditions that it's supposed to be validated against, but ARs, as we know, are not treated that way. So we will do a cleanup on those. I'll talk about some resolution we're going to start having on some of these larger issues that are out there that we want to address in a large release, but more to come on that. DN003 required on benefit segments of PY transactions.
I apologize, Brad. I accidentally typed 3. It is DN0002, the maintenance type code being required in benefit segments. So I apologize for that, everyone.
Well, thank you, Angie, for that. And then issues with TPAs leaking to claims. We're putting a fix in again for limited basis to where we can figure out if we can match up some of our legacy data to these TPAs and get them to merge and link together. But that should be, once we get that process resolved, we'll reach out to all remaining TPAs that we know are having this issue and take care of that. And then O2 change data is not updated. So we've had some instances where O2 change data is not updating is not doing an update. It's just accepting it without the update. So that is something we're looking into, and we're going through all those, and we should have some things taken care of on that. So that's what we know. Now, there is actually 2 others here. I apologize. We've been pretty frantic past few days, but we do know that the sending the same MTC for the same JCN in a batch is failing the batch. We've worked with some vendors of what the fix would be, but in trying to implement that fix, it was causing more problems in regression. So again, we're going to pull it out and do a much larger regression test and get those worked on. So those are the known issues that we know of, that I know of. So with that, Angie, do we have questions?
Yeah, we do have a few questions in the chat. So the first one, if we're still receiving sequencing issues, should we continue to reach out to the state on a claim by claim basis? So with that, I would actually recommend reaching out. You can absolutely reach out on a claim by claim basis if that is what's most feasible for you. Otherwise, if you're seeing a large number in one of your batches, one of the easiest things for us and for you all likely is if you just go ahead and send a list of those issues that you're seeing. Usually what we're gonna need is the jurisdiction claim number and then the employee security ID or the WID, along with the date of injury. Sometimes we might ask for some additional information like your claim number as well, just to make sure that that isn't creating a sequencing issue. But you can certainly continue to reach out. I would just plan on including those few basic pieces of information. That just makes it a lot easier for us to triage and get them back to you much faster. Next question. With claim petition files, are we supposed to file a FROI 00? Do we need to follow that up with a SHROI form initially if litigated right off the start of the claim? So I'm not sure if anybody from compliance is on, but I believe you would want to do the 00 with the claim petition. Now, as far as the subsequent filing, you would likely either want to file your denial if you're denying that file, or if you're picking it up, you would want to do your initial payment. It would just kind of depend on the situation, I think, and what the litigation is related to. I'm not sure if Melissa or John are available. I don't see either of them on, but we can clarify that answer with compliance as well. But from my experience, typically you're going to want to just indicate, especially if you're filing with lost time on that FROI, compliance is going to come back and ask for something. So if you're denying it, an 04 would be appropriate. If you're picking it up for some reason, the IP would be appropriate. Next question. I reversed a denial. What would be the appropriate SHROI to be to get that info into campus? Would it just be an EP or an IP? So that would depend on what was completed prior to the denial. So if you submitted your NOPLD in the legacy system and then submitted your denial in this system, you may want to do a reinstatement. So if you've paid benefits before, you may want to do a reinstatement. If it's something where you're paying for the first time, an IP or an EP would be appropriate. And that would just depend on whether it's wage continuation from the employer or if you are actually issuing the payments. All right, next question. How long does it take to get a completed form once we have an accepted SHROI? Do you want to speak to that one, Brad?
Yeah, are they talking about the forms that come back from the department in the batch? They usually go back out with the acknowledgments, so it's usually within 24 hours.
Great. And along with that, once your transaction is accepted, you should actually be able to see that form on your claiming campus. So if it's something that you need really quickly and you can't wait for your vendor, you can absolutely log into campus, go to the claim, navigate to the documents tab, and then you can actually download the document from there as well. So it's just another way to get it if you need it immediately. All right, pre-campus NOBP filing to initiate weekly PPD. All weekly PPD benefits have been paid post-campus and the SHROI UR was accepted by the jurisdiction. Is there an EDI filing needed to show all PPD is now paid? Like we used to file an NOBP showing all PPD has been paid. So Kathy, with that, are you paying any other benefits or is it just your PPD? If it's just your PPD and it was a weekly payment, you should be able to file your suspension transaction, and that would let us know that your PPD is ceasing. All right. MTCs that were sent back on 12/14 and 12/15 have not received acknowledgements. Is there an issue with getting them back in 24 hours? I'm not sure if you need me to resend them each day. It's a lot of claims that I need to touch until I receive the acknowledgement. Amber, I can look into that for you. Brad, I don't know if you have any insight on that.
Yeah, if somebody's not seeing their files within 24 hours, please reach out to the EDI team. There's an email and ask them, if you tell them you're missing some acknowledgments and they can research it for you. Right now, if a batch is failing and it won't create an acknowledgement, we need to reach out to you and tell you to resubmit it and why the batch failed. And I don't know what's happening in this particular scenario, but if that is the case, then they may need to be resubmitted. But yeah, we're on 12, 14, and 15, so that was just Monday and Tuesday. We've had no recorded issues with the engine or anything.
Yeah, so Amber, if you want to send an email to the EDI team, we can take a look. It may be something where we could send those acknowledgements. We can figure out what's going on there. And Jean, it looks like you are experiencing the same issue as Amber. So if you could also just send an email to the EDI team, we can certainly look into that. All right, next question. A large EDI release was mentioned in the Work Comp Advisory Council meeting yesterday referring to new requirements. Are these new requirements consisting of changes to the tables that may require programming changes on our end? Will we get a list of the new EDI requirements before the release is deployed? Brad, I'll let you speak to that one.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. So when we talk about new requirements, we're talking about new requirements on our end. So our first goal is to get the EDI processing consistent with the guide. Like I said, the AR data elements are a big one. The multiple transactions in a single batch that's failing out is another one. Getting some more automated, so if a file does fail, ingestion that we can quickly notify you that a file has failed, and then working on some things around there. So those are our biggest goals, are fixing the things that are blocking submissions now that are inconsistent with the guide. We are looking at possibly looking at maybe some of our match data criteria, but that's something we're just exploring now. So before we do anything, we will talk to the community and tell everybody what we're doing, because we will need some of the community's help in testing and verifying this. But yeah, most of it, when I say new requirements, it's new requirements on our end, because what we told the developers to build is not consistent with the guide that was published.
Thanks, Brad. Next question or comment, the MTC shouldn't be required on the benefit level for PY with benefit quota 500, but PYs are rejecting for that. They do accept when we add the PY MTC at the benefit level. And Sarah, I know that's something that we have on that list that we're planning to look at with that EDI release. I've been working with Sherry, I think, and you as well on that for your company. So continue to send that PY in there for now. But that is one of the things that we are looking at as well.
Yeah, that's a great example of the types of stuff we're talking about, is those things where there's just inconsistencies and it's really prohibiting, or not prohibiting, but it's really hard for people to get their files in.
Thanks, Brad. This is another one that's been brought up as well that we'll take a look at. Is there any way to file a FROI 00 before the waiting period is exhausted if we know lost time will go beyond it? So there is a way to do that currently. It would actually be tied to your claim type code, which I know is a little bit tricky in some situations for you all to manipulate, especially if you have triggers for your transactions. So if you need to file a FROI and you are not beyond the waiting period yet, you wouldn't need to enter anything into DN 297 if your claim type code is no lost time beyond the waiting period, I believe. If it is I, which is indemnity, or I can't remember all of the acronyms right now, but if it is one of the ones that is indicated in that edit, and I can find that edit and put it in the chat, you would need to have 297. And unfortunately, we do have a requirement that it has to be at least 3 days after the waiting period and can't be a future date. So that is one that I have noted. I know I've heard from a few people, so we'll certainly take a look at that as well to see if there are any changes that can be made. All right, findings and order from 9/17/2020, there was a legacy NOBP filed. There was an order on attorney fees that was then filed on 11/23/2020. Do I file the payments issued per the 11/23/2020 order? That would be a question for compliance. I don't think it would cause any issues if you wanted to submit your order on attorney fees. You may certainly do that. I'm not sure, is that order on attorney fees withheld fees that are being released to the attorney, or is it for new fees? That would likely make a difference. All right, next question. Also during the Work Comp Advisory Council discussion, you all suggested QRC issues, then attorney issues, and then finally carrier TPA issues as your intended priority schedule. Can you explain the rationale? I would have thought that getting the carrier and TPA issues corrected would have been priority one.
Yeah, I can explain the rationale for that. The rationale is really around the regression testing it takes to do these large EDI releases when we're touching sequencing, match data ingestion, and our ETL. We've tried to do some hot fixes and correct some things on the fly for the EDI world, and one in particular caused a major rejection where we had to back the release out. You probably all experienced that. And so the only reason why is because we are doing full requirements, which means we need to do full regression testing. So it just takes time. So the rationale is we can still continue to work on the QRCs and the attorneys while we're doing requirements. We're scoping this week. We'll start doing requirements next week. We'll work over the holidays getting our requirements done. Then we will develop and then do a couple of weeks of full regression testing. So the release is scheduled for 1/28 of 2021, and that's why we're doing that. It's just because the amount of potential problems in introducing new code without the full EDI regression tests going through it would probably jeopardize and hurt more than it would help.
Thanks, Brad. So I did go ahead and just put some information in the chat surrounding DN 297. I know that was a question. I'm just adding a little bit more context just to recap what I said earlier. I know that was pretty technical, so just want to make sure everybody gets that. Next question. Still have questions on Shore URs. Is the Shore UR required only on open legacy claims when ongoing indemnity after November 2nd? If payments have stopped before go live, but it is still open, do we need a Shore UR? So give me just a second here. I'll actually go ahead and pull up those guidelines. Just need to find the correct browser here. So we have this spelled out in our FAQ. So in your situation, it does not sound like you would necessarily need to file it. The only reason that you would is if there's ongoing litigation or ongoing rehab. So this is kind of a handy little sheet that we've got for the URs. It kind of tells you when you should file those for your Shore URs. One other thing that I wanted to call out with this, some confusion has been, there's been a little confusion surrounding whether or not a UR is needed if the date of injury is prior to November 2nd, but you haven't filed with the department. In those situations, if you did not ever file with the department prior to November 2nd, you can just start with your 00. You would not do a UR because we wouldn't have a jurisdiction claim number established in those instances. The only time that may be different is if there was litigation or something like that. So you never had to file, but the file does exist. So essentially, if the file does not exist or did not exist prior to 11/2, you would not need to do your URs. You would just start with your 00s. And John, I see your follow-up. Minimally, would we not need a Shore UR to get the file closed in campus? That wouldn't be a problem. The status in campus is going to be based on compliance. So compliance actually closes and opens those cases as needed for their auditing. If we see that you are done making payments and we have a suspension in the file, you shouldn't need to file anything else if you are completely done. And I see John is on the call. John, do you have anything to add to that at all from a compliance standpoint?
No, that sounds good.
All right, thank you. If a 00 is not already on file, that is. So yes, if you haven't done a 00, if the claim does not exist in campus, doesn't matter what the date of injury is, you can start with that 00 if we don't already have a file. Exactly. All right. So we are to the end of the questions for now. I'm going to hop back into my PowerPoint quickly and we can run through the next slides. All right. Brad, do you want to talk a little bit about Campus Central and the release notes?
Yeah, this is something we've got a lot of feedback on, is getting our release notes out there. So as everybody's aware, we do our releases on Thursday evenings. If we don't, we will post and tell everybody that we're not doing the release because, next week, because of the holidays, obviously we're going to do a small Tuesday release. But usually they're done on Thursdays. When the release is done, we put our notes on the Campus Central page. We also put all the newsletters that are going out and any other information. If we're doing one-off communications, we like to put them on there just so everybody has access to them. It's a goal of the Commissioner's Office to make sure we're being more transparent and that this information is out there for anybody to get, and if they have questions, to reach out to us on it. So it's just a tool so that, if you're unable to attend one of these meetings, or, it's Monday and you're wondering what happened last week, you can go in here to Central and see those items.
Thanks, Brad. I'm still not seeing any additional questions in the chat, so not sure if you want to cover the answer hour schedule, the continuing answer hour schedule next.
Yes, I can do that. So we are going to take a break from answer hours for the next couple of weeks, just with the holidays coming through. We just got feedback from internal and external staff. There's not going to be a lot of availability. Of course, we will still have a campus crew together that are going to be working on those requirements, like I said, that are going to be doing some things, but we are going to give some people a break for the holidays, but we will resume answer hours the week of the 4th.
Thanks, Brad. So I did get a question in the chat regarding sequencing issues with FROA URs. I have some FROA URs that are rejecting due to both sequencing and JCN not found in database. Is that related or just about those individual claims? So Sarah, if you're seeing that, you can send those to the EDI team. and they can verify those JCNs for you. It's possible that there's just a mismatch with the JCN, or there could be a mismatch with date of birth or social and the WID. So we can certainly take a look at those for you. Next question. I'm seeing a lot of issues with claim type errors. Most recently, we got sent a PY with claim type code I and benefit type code 520. We got an edit that was requiring lost time information, so I changed it to P indemnity with no lost time outside the waiting period. Could you please list what your requirements are for I and P? Hang on just a second, I can grab that information. I only found a requirement for benefit type code 030. So for 520, I believe that that is a lump sum of perm total. If I'm remembering correctly, I apologize, I don't have the table right in front of me right now. I'm gonna open it here and take a look on our end and see exactly what would be required for that. If it is, in fact, a code that we would accept, and it looks like it is, that one we would likely require indemnity information just because perm total is obviously an indemnity file. I can look for the specific edit though regarding those claim type codes. If you'll bear with me just a minute. One other thing while I'm looking for that we're just kind of asking all of these groups as we're doing these answer hours, and especially this one since it's kind of a specialty answer hour, is kind of the need for these going forward. If this is valuable, if you'd like us to keep kind of a separate answer hour for EDI questions, or if this is something that you feel could be moved into the other answer hour. So any feedback that you all have regarding that, it would be great to just put that in the chat. We would love that feedback to make sure that we are providing you all with enough information. And apologize, I'm having a little bit of trouble finding my claim type code here. As soon as I find it, I can post some additional information into the chat. I may need to follow up with you on that one. It looks like there, Angela, there's a few different edits, so I can help you kind of pinpoint those. I can send you an email. Okay. It looks like you all would like to keep this as a separate answer hour, so we can definitely plan to do that. And Angela, I saw you're also having the issue with the PY rejecting for no match on DN 85 for sweep segment. So if you put the MTC, the PY MTC in the benefit segment, that should solve that. That is something that we're aware of and we're working to fix. All right. I don't see any other questions in the chat right now. Brad, anything else you would like to add before we call this one a little early today?
No, these are really helpful, and like I said, we will be doing a lot more communications and working with this group, because like we are doing a larger release to clean up some of these inconsistencies with either the way we've interpreted the guide or the way that our system is handling these transactions. So we will keep in touch. We appreciate it. This group is really important to us, and obviously that's why it's our first major release that we're doing after go live, is to do something to free this up so that this is an easier process for you. So we know there's a lot of work out there. We recognize that the insurance community is under the gun right now with all the the outside forces of COVID and a number of other things. So we want to try to get this resolved for you as soon as possible. So we appreciate your patience, and we will be reaching out with questions. So please reach back if you have any questions for us, or you have any comments. And with that, I say thank you.
Awesome. I do have one last question in the chat just regarding NOID suspension forms coming back. And if you could send me a few examples, I can look into that. They should be returning as long as you have a return to work date in there and the return to work date is actual. Then we would also be looking at the suspension reason code of S1, which is return to work or medically released to return to work. If it is anything other than that instance, we would assume that it is a NOID 3 situation, meaning that the benefits were discontinued for reasons other than return to work. In that instance, we would require that discontinuance web form. So the form would not be returned for the EDI transaction. It would actually generate based on your discontinuance web form, and it would generate and create an affidavit of service and allow you to serve any of the parties that are in campus via campus. So that may be the instance, but if you want to send me a couple examples, I can certainly dig into those and make sure that that is what's happening on your end. All right, so I think for real this time, we don't have any additional questions in the chat. So as Brad said, thank you all so much. These are always very helpful for us and hopefully they're helpful for you. So we will plan to touch base with you all again in our next answer hour in January. Thanks, everybody.